Hello everyone, my name is Ayrton, coming back at you with another Man in Japan deck profile, and this one actually is a bit special. Today is the 6th of September, about 15 past 12, so the new Overdress episode is airing in about 15 minutes, and yeah, that's significant about that day. But something else significant about this day is that 3 days ago, on Saturday the 3rd of September, I went to WGP Nagoya. You might have seen it, where a certain team called Harapin Fighters, featuring Mr. Different Fight, Chris, myself, and Yuki. In that order, Chris, myself, Yuki, as in that team order, came second in bracket A, the Nagoya WGP, and I got the sick ass certificate for it. It's quite nice. I'll leave that one there. But yeah, we came second at the qualifier. I've seen a lot of different decks at that event. A little bit of a report on that. I played in Swiss. I played pretty much like just 2 decks. I played Leonor in round 1, Leonor in round 2, Bruce in both 3 and 4. I played against Flagberg in top 8. Top 4, I played against Overlord, and in finals, I played to PBO, where I unfortunately opened very poorly, where I sent 3 back to Mull, and I drew in the exact order. I think it was crit, front, and OT, and I'm like, okay, cool, we'll figure out what's from there. But that's enough of me rambling. I played grade 4 Kyrie at the event. Lyrical Booster 3 was legal for the event. This one right here with my mutilated box that I am going to make dividers out of, because I need more dividers for my box. But it's the Somerset LBT03, coming with a bunch of new cards, 16 red lines, and very, very expensive card that we'll go into later that was not fun to purchase, I'll say that. It was well worth the purchase because it came second with it, but it was quite expensive nonetheless. But yeah, second place. This is actually my very first in-person Vanguard event, like proper. I played BRO once. It was just for premium, just because I really had nothing better to do on the day. It was fun, but it was much more fun playing in person, I would do say. But yes, again, enough of me rambling. You would have seen this, I think. No, I don't think. I know that Mr. Derek Dow did a video covering the event, and there were some points that I saw in his video that I actually want to cover myself. So I'm going to just go through the deck as per usual. So, much like my last Kyrie deck profile, we're running the ride line from the trial deck. So, unlike last time, I got them in foil. I bought them pretty cheap, but I like shiny cardboard. Nothing really much changes here, except that some of the bouncing skills actually become a lot more powerful now. You end up bouncing a lot of your board to hand now, and I'll go into that in a bit more detail, but you do definitely want to play the Astasy starter. Grade 1's just free call from drop. On swing, bounce 1. On swing, Soul Blast 2, bounce 2. We don't have to ever worry about his other skill because we never percenter right in this deck. Yeah, we'll just put that to the right line to the side for a moment. And then for the main event, we have the big deck here itself. So, we'll start off with 4 cards. The one that makes the deck, Kyrie herself. Now, if you don't happen to know what this does already, so Kyrie here is continuous on the Vanguard circle. During the turn, if a unit was called, it gets plus 5k. If a rearguard is called specifically, so you can't really call a Vanguard. But all your rearguards, when you call them, gets plus 5k. It mitigates the fact that you don't get a percenter right in this deck, but front row, back row, they'll get plus 10 if you call them fresh. Might as well be just a fresh percenter ride. And when it swings, if you have a Kyrie and Soul, you can bounce 2 cards on board and call them. So it is a consistent 5 attack deck And the cold units will also get the plus 5k from Kairi's effect. Very strong, 5 big attacks per turn as soon as you get to grade 4 Kyrie. And you also get triple drive, which is great because you can actually see more triggers. And when I get to my trigger lineup, I'll have a very funny story about that. But yes, 4 of that Kyrie. I mean, it's pretty stock standard. You'll see it everywhere if you're playing Kyrie. Next is 2 copies. Yes, 2 copies of Kinky right here on place. From drop, grab a grade 2 or less normal SC unit, shove it into soul, counterblast 1, and then gets plus 10k. So it refreshes your soul, which is very important in this deck. Let me tell you, very important. And if it's so important, why I'm only playing 2? No shield value, and it only gets big. I mean, that's quite nice, but the other card I had that instead of playing more of this, which will come later, I feel is a bit more important, but on a good turn, it will be 28, swinging for 28. With an 8k booster behind it, it will give a bit of power. It can go 31, it can go higher, but you'll be usually hitting either the X1 or the X6 number of this. And it also resets for Laplume combos, so which is pretty stock standard for old Kyrie, but this card could be considered an MVP for the deck. Next is Hopstale Melty. Almost every lyrical deck at this point plays it. On place, counterblast 1, call a card from hand, draw 1. Continuous, it makes friends, but we don't play any other friend cards in this deck that I'm aware of. But the friends condition doesn't actually matter. What matters is that she draws cards. And if you don't see this, which I didn't in my finals game until it was way too late, it's kind of detrimental to the game plan. Counterblast 1, draw 1, very good. I mean, can't really complain about that. So, if you look at my deck log, you'll see that all my rarities are consistent, but after Nagoya, we came back, went to Akihabara, so I did get a couple of upgrades. So we got the new card here, Alche. So, she has this, I can't read the FR from this distance. So, she has 2 Regard skills. So, auto, when placed from by the skill of a grade 3 Regard on the grade 3 Vanguard on a Regard circle, she gets plus 5k. So, on a Kyrie turn, if you call her out off Kyrie's swing, she's a 20k beater. Hit triggers, make her 30, 40, 50, whatever you want. That's a good skill, but I think the second skill is a bit better. So if a it's auto, if a rear guard is returned to your hand, you give one of your Vanguards plus, until the end of the turn, plus 5k. And it's, the wording on it, if I'm not mistaken, the wording on it specifically only counts 1 rear guard at a time. So on your grade 3 Kyrie turn, when you swing and you're bouncing 2 units, it'll proc it twice, giving your Vanguard plus 10. It gives your Vanguard effectively a free plus 10 trigger. And that's big, because your old Kyrie turn used to be, 19. I drop a front. Cool. It's going to be harder to hit now. But now, you can convincingly make good numbers with Kyrie. Not even convincingly, you just make good numbers with Kyrie. Let me see this. I'm only playing 2 because I only had room for 2, much like Kinky. You're digging through your deck much faster now, so with certain cards that come up later again. But this makes your Kyrie big during the grade 3 turn, and it's very important on the grade 3 turn. Besides that, it's alright on the grade 2 Kyoka turn, because it makes Kyoka... Keep calling it Kyoka. Kyoda. It makes your Kyoda swing for 15, or if you have a booster behind it, if you have the starter, it becomes 21, and if you put another an 8k behind it, it becomes a 23, which is pretty good numbers. The 21 gets past them dropping 10k if they ever wanted to drop a 10k for some reason. But yeah, there's that. New card, very good. Then we have Cecilia. Cecilia? Cecilia. I don't remember how to pronounce her name. Draw power. When placed, if you have 3 or more other rear guards, so it doesn't count itself. 3 or more other rear guards, counterblast 1, draw 1. I mean, same as multi. Counterblast 1, draw 1. Very, 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 very good. I appreciate draw a lot in this deck, especially because I sometimes don't see Kyrie. Alright, moving on to the great ones. We have 4 Eileen. When she boosts a rear guard, so not your Vanguard. When she boosts a rear guard, look at the top card of your deck, put it top or bottom. I mean, predict your future. Not even predict your future, just know your future half the time. The amount of times I would just leave this on top of the deck in testing was quite high. But even then, it's just good to know what comes on top. Like, if unoptimally you leave this on attack after you've swung with Van, you can put a defensive on top that might help you survive the next turn if your hand's not too amazing. In conjunction with this card in your Kyrie turn, you can swing and put a card like a PG on top, and then when you call this out, you counterblast 1 and draw the PG. Very good. Because it is still placed from hand. Next, we have a card that is worth a lot of money right now. Like, I don't know how to like describe how much money this thing's worth. According to a couple of people, this might be the single most expensive triple rare that's been released in this game. At the time of recording, this is about 5,000 yen. Fortunately, I didn't have to pay that much for mine, but I didn't have time in the morning before Nagoya, so I went down to Nagoya the morning this came out, the day this came out, but I was at work, so I was looking at prices the entire day and saw it at Shaka Shaka, the store that I like to buy my stuff from usually, for 1,100 yen, and I'm like, Chris, go, please buy it for me, if you're able to go, but that unfortunately didn't happen. We ended up having to buy 3 in Nagoya for about 3,800 a piece, so that got pretty expensive. And then Yuki pulled one from his boxes, and I bought it. I borrowed it for the event and then bought it from for 4,000 yen. But what makes it deserve this price tag? So, Cooling Heart Yuika is once per turn. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, if you've called a card to the same, if you called a rear guard to the same column as it, it gets plus 5k. On a grade 4 Kyrie turn, almost always be 13k or higher, which is a good boosting number as it is. It can be up to 18 as well. But the other skill is, at the end of the battle that you boosted, you can Soul Blast 1 and bounce the boosted unit to hand. And let me tell you, freeing up your front row for certain combos and just being able to rush your opponent and bounce all your pieces to hand is amazing. Colloquially, we call it the Uzumaki Barrage. But then this is what helps other decks your deck just hit numbers. It works really well with Alchi as well, so you can do it like this on your grade 2 turn, where you boost a Melty Eileen, look at the top card of your deck, swing Kyora, bounce this, this gives your Van plus 5, swing this, and then bounce this straight to hand. You'll end up with returning 2 cards on board and your drive check as well, and leaving no front row for your opponent to smack. And yeah, that's great. It's always great. This card is well worth the money, in my opinion. I don't think I would have done so well without this card, honestly. You deserve to be on top of that pile there. Like, actual MVP. So next, I've actually cut this down from last time, so I'm playing 3 copies of Lap Plume here. So Lap Plume skill is, when it's called to Rearguard Circle, you can choose a grade 2 or less assassin. I believe it's also a normal unit. Grade 2 or less unit? No, it's just asks for a unit, and then call it as rest if you're in your battle phase, standard. So off your Nanami, you can call Nanami when you ride it. you can call a card from Dropper's Rest. You call this and you put this behind Van. Good booster for the rest of the game if nothing touches it. And also during your Grateful Kyrie turn, works well in conjunction with this, because you used to have to call over things because it can only call to an open rearguard circle, but now let's say for example you boosted with this, you bounce this to hand. When you swing a Kyrie, you can pull this, and then call this to the empty circle. The only reason I'm running 3 is because it rips a card out of Soul and it conflicts with Yuika. And I feel like Yuika is more important to have than Laplume at the moment. Last but not least, finishing off the grade 1s is 4 Perfect Guards. Please do yourself a favor and don't play the Auto Perfect Guard in this deck. It won't work because you need to be on a grade 3 or less Vanguard. But yeah, the PG, I think this is the card that might need the least amount of explanation in the deck. So I'll just leave it at that. Block big attacks. Big attacks bad. If you take note here, I'm actually missing 2 other cards that go in the deck. I'll go to the next, because my next set of cards here are pretty obvious. So I got OT. I'm playing the human OT now because I found this for 600 yen, and I really like the art because Coral Artist is based. Playing 4 draw. Even with all the draw power in the deck, you still need to see your pieces. 10k shield is always good. This card's expensive as well. I think I think they're selling for like 1,000 yen or like 1,100 yen now. Stores are buying this for like 700 yen. And I opted to play 4 vanilla heals because if you looked at the bracket, there were so many decks. Overlord seemed to be popular, so I might consider taking one of these out for a stand. The restanding heal that I do have an FR of, but I feel like just playing vanilla heals is perfectly serviceable. Especially since if I go in the mirror, that vanilla heal is just more valuable because nothing in this deck restands. Brilliant. So this is the part where I mentioned Derek Dow. He talked about my trigger lineup in particular here, where I'm playing 4 fronts and 3 crits. The only reason I'm playing 4 fronts and 3 crits is because of Yuika now. A lot of people still tend to go 1 to pass on the van, and if I've seen the future and stack that front on top of the deck, that van is hitting and that rearguard is hitting, so they've wasted a card and they'll have to waste more cards guarding the rearguard. If I could play more crits, I would, but I feel like fronts are more important as well, and especially because like matches like Eva and any deck that gives their van like plus 5k power, not being able to drop like this to make 33, still make it a 2 pass instead of dropping the 15k is like, oh okay cool, 1 pass. No, I want that 2 pass. I want to be safe. So not only do you pump your front row up big, you also be safe. So ideally in a scenario you'll be like something like this. Let's say for example I swing this here. This is 18k. I look at the top card of my deck, it's a front. I just leave it there. Next, I swing this. I swing Kiara boosted by Mion. I will bounce the Melty to hand. This will proc, giving this plus 5. And now, if my opponent is a grade 2, and they drop a 15k shield, it's still 1 to pass. So they've just wasted a 15k shield. And I know it's on top of my deck now, so I go here, front. My front row gets plus 10k. Now, this is swinging for 28, and guess what? They have to drop more than 15k shield. And that alone was my main reason behind playing fronts, more fronts over crits. Just being able to hit your numbers. And you tend to notice that people can't guard against big numbers late game as well. Especially since if you run out of soul for being too greedy, like I usually do, your fronts will make up for the fact that you were greedy. But yes. So yeah, 4 fronts, 3 crits. And my crit here is this SP here was a present from Shaka Shaka Tensho. the boss at Shaka Shaka. When we came back, we weren't actually originally going to Akihabara. We met up with a friend of ours because he's happened to be playing short tournaments. So we ended up doing a bit of shopping because I had to sell a couple cards as well. So we ended up going to Shaka Shaka for a little bit, and Big Boss gave us SPs, and like high rarity cards as like a special present for doing so well because we didn't get a trophy. But yeah, this SP is very nice as well. But now comes the spicy check choice that I've been holding off for this entire time. So we have here 2 of the Wallista gem cards. Now, for those who don't know, it's a grade 0 order, played anytime during the game, during your turn because it's normal order. It is Counterblast 1, draw 2, and discard 1. After that, put this card into your soul. So for Counterblast 1, you do a top Idol Riviera in V. So you cycle through your deck faster, more draw, and then you make soul for Yuika to use. And I feel like not only is digging through your deck important, obviously you want to compress your deck as much as possible. See this as early as possible. Holy, the amount of times that this card drew me into this during testing and an actual WGP is nuts, and also making the soul is just amazing. And honestly, like, I feel like this might be the going forward. I feel like this might be the way to go from now on, just playing 2 of these gems. I was considering playing Sweet Suit as well because it just makes a board, and I didn't realize it never occurred to me that I could actually call the grade 4 Kyrie and bounce it to hand, because for some reason I didn't think like that, but I just thought that like, oh cool, I can just use Sweet Sweet to make a board. But Chris and Yuki pointed out to me afterwards, like, oh, you can just call the grade 4 Kyrie. It's like, oh, but you can just use Sweet Sweet to get a grade 4 Kyrie. I'm like, but oh, you have to call it, right? And they're like, oh, you could just swing and bounce a 10. I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. So, but yeah, this Wallista gem is, it's, I don't know, something about these 2 working together in unison is so amazing. Like, I don't know, I'm so glad that I put this in the deck in particular. And that's pretty much it. That's pretty much my deck profile. I'm gonna stop myself from like saying random words just to describe how I feel about that one card. But overall, with the event, I was very happy. So my personal record for today, over that day, was, I think, over 7 rounds, because we got to the finals, was 5-2. I lost in the first round against Leonor to 6 damage heal and then OT. So what can you do? I won round 2. I won round 3 very brutally because I swung with Kyrie, hit crit front crit on a 3 pass. I think it was on a 2 pass. So yeah, so I saw the crit because I knew it was there. Like, Orvan swung front, and he's like, oh no, it's over. Then I flipped the last one crit, and it's like, oh cool, 3 damage. And I was already on lyrical OT. So, and then my 4th round, it was against grade 3 Bruce, the stable Bruce build. So it was a very, very heal heavy game. I think we might have checked all our heals. I did hit a 6 damage heal, and on his last playable turn, because he had 1 card left in deck, but he also 6 damage healed the turn before. So all's fair. Politely past turn. In top 8, I played against Flagberg. It was a pretty stock standard game. They were blowing up my board, but I gave them the good old Uzumaki Barrage. Early, they couldn't really guard too much, so they weren't playing on high damage the entire game. Late game, they just didn't have any hand because I had to use all their rear guards and optimal key pieces to guard. And Persona Road and put a crit down as a rear guard. Survived the turn, then proceeded to end the game next turn. Top 4 was against Overlord, where my opponent didn't ride into Overlord because I bounced my entire front row, so he had nothing to swing into. I think he was afraid of me dropping the PG, so he just rode up straight into the end, and even with the new PR, he couldn't really keep and sustain a hand because I just keep smacking it every time. There were times in the game where I thought he had 4 drives, but because like I've almost never fought an overlord that didn't have, or a dote that had an overlord that did not have an overlord installed, so I keep forgetting that I had that. But I feel like I still would have done well even if he had 4 drives, because he did hit OT eventually, but it didn't matter because he hit no crits during that turn. And in finals I went against PBO where I said I bricked, unfortunately. But WGP Nagoya, not Nagoya, Yokohama is in like 2 weeks. We'll be playing more of this deck. I don't know if I'll be making any changes to it, but this deck reminds me so much of like Revere. It's great. If you do pick this up, be wary that it might cost more in English, but Japanese ratios are a bit screwed. Because I think in a case, you could like the average was 5 UE cards, and with that sort of ratio and the card being that good, it's obviously going to be high. And hopefully in English, like, even in English, you have pretty decent ratios, so you should be able to pick this card up for like a bit cheaper than, oh, not a bit cheaper, but hopefully cheaper than it has been here in Japan. Besides that, happy with my result. Happy that I was able to play a team tournament with a different fight and Yuki. That was a very, very good experience. Because I felt really jealous when the boys were able to go to BCS, and I'm like, oh, I wanted to go play trios, but I think I did really well, and hopefully this deck profile and the explanations help you guys out as well. So what else is there to say? Oh yes, like and subscribe. You can see more content of the Japan stuff, and also the boys in Australia doing funny stuff, because we're funny guys, I hope. Like, subscribe, comment below if there's any questions you have, because there's probably stuff I didn't answer, or stuff that my consistent rambling didn't answer properly. Let's have a look at how long this is. This is nearly half an hour, so I'll wrap it up here. Everyone, take care, and yeah. You would not believe your eyes if 10 million fireflies lit up the world as I fell asleep. As I fill the open air and leave teardrops everywhere, you think me rude?